Mr. President, over the weekend, President Trump launched a military attack on Iran. While there has been a bipartisan backing for stopping Iran's development of nuclear weapons for many years, and its support for regional terrorist proxies also come to an end, there is no consensus in America for another interminable war in the Middle East. A war in Iran could create another long-term military commitment with deadly consequences. Already we've seen the tragic death of 4 U.S. service members and serious injury of others, as well as attacks in 9 countries around the region. The impulsiveness of President Trump, particularly without congressional approval in matters of war, is a further concern. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says the American people should make this decision through their elected members of Congress. The power to declare war in our Constitution is an explicit power of Congress. I think back to a statement made on the floor by my colleague and friend, Senator Tim Kaine, when we discussed this section of the Constitution. He made note of the fact that the person who was leading that discussion at the time was George Washington, the most famous general in the history of the United States, a military leader whose prowess brought us to this moment and opportunity in history. And yet here was George Washington at a constitutional convention endorsing a document which said when it came to decisions of war, it was beyond the president. It was for the American people to make through Congress. Under the law, the president of Congress overwhelmingly affirmed this provision when it passed the War Powers Act in 1973 over the veto of President Nixon. I remember that era very well. It was the controversy of the Vietnam War and the decision of Congress to stand firm on the proposition that the Constitution would prevail and that Congress would ultimately make the decision. President Nixon challenged that decision by Congress, vetoed the bill, and Congress rallied enough troops, congressional troops that is, when it came to Democrats and Republicans to override President Nixon's veto of the War Powers Act. There are many critics of the War Powers Act today. I'm not one of them. Certainly it could be improved, but it came at a time in our history when Congress stood up as an institution and said to the president, "You're wrong. You're asking for more power than the Constitution gives you." Under the law, the War Powers Act, the president has the authority to approve military attacks as a response to an imminent threat or with the express authorization of Congress. Neither of those things apply in the situation today with Iran. Let me be clear. The Iranian regime sponsors terrorism, wants to destroy Israel, and undermines U.S. interests. They have pursued nuclear weapons, and they are guilty of brutal repression of their people. These issues are troubling, but they don't result in our ignoring the Constitution. They shouldn't. I support Senator Kaine's War Powers Resolution, requiring congressional approval for any further war with Iran. Our founders were very wise on this point. One should never send our sons and daughters into war without the consent of the people. I have made this argument throughout my congressional career, regardless of whether the occupant of the White House was a Democrat or a Republican.